So here's the piece that I'm going to be working on in this video. It's actually a vintage headboard. I thought it was like a buffet sideboard thing, credenza type thing when I first picked it up. But then after further inspection, I realized that the base seemed kind of off and that the height was actually a little bit too low to really be useful as a buffet or sideboard. So after talking to some furniture friends and doing a little research, I found out that it was actually an old headboard, which is still really cool. And I love the piece. I love these sliding doors and the way that they're designed. I think it's really cool and modern and fun. So I'm just going to give it a makeover, some new legs with a little bit more height, and try to turn it into something fun and new and more modern. So I'm thinking that I'm going to do a little pop of color, probably on the doors, and then strip that old dated stain off and probably do something a little bit cooler, darker walnut color. So all I had to do to cut off the base for this piece was I measured to the very bottom of the top part of the sideboard, and then I just made a line on each side as a guide to for my circular saw to be able to cut straight. And I propped the piece up on its back, and then I just took my handy portable circular saw and chopped that base right in half. It was super easy, and I just did first one side and then the next side. It was a little bit of an awkward position holding the circular saw, but I tried a couple different ways, and this was just the best position for using the portable circular saw in this way. And I still think it was the best saw for the job, just because of the way that it cuts so pretty smooth, and you can get a really nice straight line with the circular saw. Next, I'm using my orbital sander just to smooth out the edge, the part that I cut. Make sure it's nice and smooth with no sharp or rough edges or splinters or anything sticking out. Since this is the base and I'm not attaching anything to this part, I'm just staining it, and then the new legs are going to go underneath this. So I really just want to make sure that it's nice and smooth and that it can be picked up by these edges. Now I'm moving on to one of my favorite parts, which is stripping off the old stain. It's just so satisfying and fun to see that dated old color with damage and little spots to just come right off. So my favorite method of stripping is actually with a heat gun. I think it's the quickest. I mean, no matter what you do, it's going to take some time, so just make peace with that. But this, I believe, is the quickest way, and it's definitely the least messy method for removing an old stain. I do like some kinds of non-toxic stripping agents, but the heat gun really just does it almost the most effectively, I'd say, and it just makes these little like curls, like dry curls of old stain that you can vacuum or sweep up, and so it's not very messy at all, especially if you're doing it outside. It's no big deal. So I take the heat gun, as you can see, and I melt just a little section at a time, and you can tell that it's ready, that it's melted enough, because it kind of bubbles up a little bit, and it'll change color, bubble a little, and then that means that it's just perfect and ready for scraping. If you see a little bit of smoke coming off, that means that you've done it too much, and you want to immediately stop using the heat gun in that area, because it can make like a small little burnt spot on the wood, which you can sand out, but it's an extra work, an extra step, and it's kind of a pain. So you want to make sure that your heat gun is on a medium setting and not too hot, so that it doesn't burn the old finish too quickly. Sometimes I'm really impatient and I'm just burning spots all over, and it's really annoying to have to go back over and sand. But as you can see, this is coming off really nicely. So this is what I'm scraping off right here is mainly the top coat. Some of the old stain is coming off with it, but it's mainly whatever top coat was used. And that is the hardest part for sanding. So as long as I can get most of that top part off, then the sanding will be much quicker and easier. Now I'm just moving on to the top, and I'm gonna use the same method using my heat gun and my metal scraper to remove that old finish. So just a few tips. As I already said, you want to make sure that the heat gun is on about a medium setting, just so that you don't burn the old finish off too quickly and it starts smoking and you get burn spots. The top of this piece is actually coming off really well, removing almost all of the stain, as you can see, just scraping off that orange top coat and stain, and I'm really close. I'm getting it really close to raw wood. So that means sanding the top is going to be really easy for me. Another thing I'd like to mention is the way you hold the metal scraper is also important. You just want to make sure that you keep the scraping edge nice and flat. Don't ever like tip it to one side to try to remove the finish. You just want to keep it nice and flat so that you don't gouge the wood or scrape off any splinters and damage the piece. So just hold that nice and flat while you're scraping away the old finish. And here's how that top part looks after stripping all the old finish off. Really, almost all of it came off with the heat gun, so that means sanding is going to be super easy and quick. Now I'm ready to paint, and I picked out this really fun bright teal color. Such a beautiful blue color, and I just love painting things blue. So I think this will really pop against the wood grain of the body of this piece. So I'm using my flat zebra brush to paint this on, which helps it go on nice and smooth. And I'm just going nice even strokes up and down, not side to side crazy or anything, just nice and up and down. So any brush strokes will all be going the same direction. And as always, I'll have the products supply list in the description of this video, so you can just go straight there and see all the links to all the products that I'm using. So I realized I didn't have a clip of the sanding, but all I did was I took that same orbital sander and I used a 220 grit and just went over the entire piece one time, and that removed any of the old leftover stain that was still on after using the heat gun to strip it. So now I'm all ready to stain, and I'm using one of my favorite shades, Minwax, and the shade is Jacobine. This is just a classic color. It's a little bit darker, a little bit cooler, not such an orange, you know, it doesn't have those orange tones. It's a little more dark and cool. So I am using an old t-shirt cloth, just a small little piece, to wipe the stain on, and then I take another part of a t-shirt rag and another just really small piece, and I wipe off the excess. So you kind of wipe it on, really saturate it. You want the stain to just completely saturate that wood, and it usually takes about a minute or 2 minutes for it to really soak in, and you'll see it'll start looking a little bit dry in some areas, and when it looks like that, that's when you're ready to wipe it back. So I did that on the entire piece, and I am just obsessed with the way it looks. And now I'm ready for the top coat. I love this product because it goes on really smooth. You can get an ultra smooth finish with it, and it's a wipe on. So you just apply it with a cloth and kind of smooth it out a little bit. You want to make sure that you don't really see too much product sitting on the wood and drying. You really want to get it pretty smooth. And it's almost like a wax, but it's much easier to use than a wax. So I just wipe it on, and it dries like super smooth really quickly. And they do have a flat or a glossy, but for this I'm using the satin, which is my favorite look, because it gives it kind of a sheen in the light, but nothing like gloss, and a little bit more of a sheen than matte. So the satin is what I use most of the time. And I'm gonna put this on the entire base of the piece. It doesn't need to go on the painted doors, just over the stained part of the wood to protect it and give it that nice smooth sheen. And here you can really see the sheen that it adds to the wood. I love doing it in kind of a shadowy room, so I don't have the light on in my shed, and I apply it really just by looking at kind of like the glare, the sheen that it adds. So once it's very uniform and smoothed out and even, I know that I have like the exact right amount on, and then I'm finished with that part. Next, I added this really pretty liner that I thought would be a good accent to the overall look of the piece. You know, I feel like it could be more of a masculine type piece, maybe like a whiskey or a Scotch bar or something. And then with this pretty liner on the inside, kind of adds that feminine touch. So along with that blue color, I feel like it would be really great for you know, like a couple for their house, like a whiskey bar or a liquor bar. Adding a liner like this can be a bit of a challenge. You do have to measure very exact and then carefully place, and I just like do this a million times. Like I lay it in and then I pull it up and I lay it in a million times over until I'm happy with it. And then the key is just smoothing it out. So I usually do like a hand smooth, and I just smooth it out with my hand. You can really kind of feel any air bubbles, and then you can press them towards the side to really smooth that out. I have used like a little plastic thing before, but sometimes that actually damages the liner, or if there's like a tiny little piece of dust or lint underneath, it can like create a small hole, and then you have to do the whole thing over. So I usually just use my hands unless there's a little bubble that I just can't get out with my hands. And then I very carefully use a little plastic tool. So here's the before again. Ivy Lane challenge. Yesterday, all I did was bring it from inside my house, and here's how it turned out. Let me know what you think in the comments, or if you have any questions, just drop me a comment. All the products I used are listed in the description. You can see all the links there. This piece is available on my Etsy shop. Stay tuned for the next flipping video. Or if you're interested in learning how to flip a piece on your own, check out my 3-part flipping class for beginners. I'll go over everything you need to know and walk you through flipping your first piece. So go ahead and check that out if you're interested.